And welcome to a long distance edition of Ben's Junk. But you already knew that Ben's Junk was perfectly capable of long distances, now didn't you? Anyway, dirty jokes aside, I'm finishing up something I started pretty recently with this video. So if you remember the Mail Day video I did quite recently, I mentioned that I was sent a Betamax deck and a bunch of those little paper packages, which I spent in that video opening, and I also had a Ben's Junk candidate in there. Here it is. And this is effectively the VCR Rabbit 3.0 or 4.0, however many editions of the VCR Rabbit there were. But yeah, this is the wireless video sender from X-10. Now, the only tie that Archive has ever had to X-10 to date was, I think it's been about 6 months now, but I did an episode, one of my commercial riffing episodes, and I think I called it Pointless Products. And one thing was kind of a very early proto smart home sort of thing, a glorified lamp timer is what it was, from BSR, subsequently X-10. And they went on to do a whole bunch of weird kind of home automation stuff. LGR has a great video on part of their system that you could tie to your home computer. I believe it was on MS-DOS. Part of me kind of wants to send this along to LGR actually, because according to the manual, this can be tied in to work with other X-10 stuff. So I don't own any other X-10 stuff, and he could probably come up with something really big and really absurd with it. I don't know if he wants to, but he could if he wanted to. So anyway, this comes right at the end of the usefulness for something like this. So this was actually new old stock, but assuming this sold at all and just didn't sit in some warehouse, it was $129. Now, the manual says it was written in April of 97, so this probably came out in 97, probably hit its peak in 98. And 1998 would have been right about the end of the line for something like this. So I might be going crazier in my old age here, but I definitely remember when DSS, Digital Satellite Service, came out, because it was advertised constantly on TV, at least where I grew up. And so, I thought it looked like the coolest thing in the world, satellite dish, your own little 12-inch or 16-inch, however big it was, satellite dish. And then I learned that there was no local TV on it. And if memory serves, this is where my mind might be failing me a bit, but I don't think you could multiplex those things quite yet. As in, you couldn't run two multiple TVs and have it be capable of you watching different shows on different TVs with just one dish. You'd have to buy 2 dishes for 2 TVs, 3 for 3 TVs, and so on. So in this case, at least you could go beyond your main TV, presumably your living room TV, and at least watch the same thing in the bedroom or wherever, in the kitchen if you had a little TV in there. And so, yeah, by the time 1998 rolled around, I think we were getting to the point where you could multiplex those little satellite dishes. And of course, local TV happened on those things right around that time. And like a VCR, you could get a cheap VCR for less than the price of one of these things. So after a certain point, it just becomes pointless. So anyway, I'm going to cover this anyway, just because that's what I do. And also, I noticed that it operates in the same range as Wi-Fi. So I preemptively unplugged my router for this. For the life of me, I couldn't tell you if mine is 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz, but whatever, it's off right now. And I don't think any of my neighbors use any kind of extenders or anything. So I think we're okay to test. Speaking of testing, I have not done a full test on this thing. I only did a real basic short range test. Actually, if I turned the camera around 180 degrees, you would see my test monitor. So we're talking 8 feet at best, 6 to 8 feet from my main TV to my PVM that I was using as a test receiver. and it works. It was glitchy, but I think that was because I still had my Wi-Fi on. So we'll give it another shot, and we will do as long range a test as I am capable of, which is more like 50 feet, not 100, unfortunately. The absurdist in me would love to go outside with a bunch of extension cords and an old CRT and try it out there, but I don't think I want the attention. I think I have kind of a reputation as the neighborhood loon already. So anyway, let me take a cut here. We'll take a quick look at just the basic pieces. Basically, this is it right here on the box. And we'll do 2 tests with this. One short range and one as long as practically possible. Well, here we have the complete contents of the box. So we have transmitter, receiver, remote control, a basic 1/8" patch cable, batteries still sealed, and the manual. That is it. So let me just try and run this down as best as I can. With the transmitter here, it's actually the kind of Mickey Mouse ear looking thing that's the antenna according to the manual. And this other antenna is meant to work in tandem with the IR extender, this 1/8" jack back here. So of course, at the time, the RCA brand, certainly DSS boxes, had 1/8" jacks on them, so you could kind of have a little more leeway in controlling them, hook them to a home theater or something. But in this case, obviously I don't own some vintage, at this point, vintage RCA DSS box, and even if I did, I don't have the satellite service for it. The only thing I own with those 1/8" jacks that would be practical to use here is actually the VHS deck that I use to do transfers around here. And that has 2 of those jacks, one for AV CompuLink and one that just says cable box. Presumably it's cable box, so I will try out our patch cable here. For a lark, I'll pop those ancient batteries in here. Worst case scenario, they don't work and I'll just put in some fresh ones, or even half-deads. I got plenty of those. And otherwise, let's just see what I can think of offhand here. This is the receiver end of things, and only the receiver has RF output and RF output on it. And otherwise, everything is composite. No S-video on this, no component, certainly. That wasn't really that much of a thing on consumer gear quite yet. We can transmit and receive on 4, if you will, channels. If I can get my camera to focus on it. A, B, C, and D. And a basic power on and off switch. That is all we have to work with here. So anyway, let's talk about the remote for a bit here. This is not only intended to be kind of your generic universal remote, but it's also intended to be a controller for your shiny new, presumably new at the time, X-10 system. Or maybe you still had old stuff from '79 kicking around, but that might not work too good. And funnily enough, you can control some of the functions like light brightness and stuff if you have dimmers set up. So yeah, it makes me want to send this off to LGR that much more, see if he couldn't like use the remote on his computer or something hooked to this and the receiver, whatever, something really weird and stupid, the setup that is. But otherwise, that's kind of all we have to work with here. So like I said, we'll test out the remote control, but something tells me for the first main test, since it's such a short distance, I might trip the VCR anyway. So that'll be more for the long-term, long-distance test. But yeah, that'd be kind of cool if I could aim this at the receiver, press stop or whatever, and in another room at the other end of Archive HQ, stop the VCR that is functioning as our would-be broadcast. So yeah, let's get started. Well, I have no choice. First off, apologies. I have no choice but to go into Pukevision for some of this. Anyway, to my utter shock, my 25-year-old batteries are indeed working. So I will show that off here. I will hit stop, play, fast forward, rewind, and play again. So yeah, that much still works. So now for my next trick, we'll do a short range test. Okay, this is effectively a repeat of my first test, 6 to 8 feet, and there is a certain amount of glitching that goes on. I found, for me, channel D, if you will, gives me the fewest glitches, but it's a bit out of the shot, but I do have the Mickey Mouse ear, if you will, aimed directly at the transmitter, so that probably helps. Oh, and we're just in time for the Vicky song. It's always got to be EGOT, doesn't it? So anyway, I have a feeling that I'm at such a close range that when I hit stop on this, I'm just going to trigger the VCR as normal. So this probably won't be that great, yeah, a test. And there's some of that glitching that I mentioned. So I guess if I take my microphone off again, I'll quick turn it to channel A, and it spazzes a bit more. Watch, it won't, since I have the camera on. And there's channel A. And sure enough, it's not giving me any trouble now, but it was giving me the most trouble out of any, and this is before I turned the camera on, not necessarily my preliminary test earlier. But as you can hopefully see on the PVM, it's a real nice, good, sharp, clean image, no interference, no static at all, nothing goofy going on in the underscan. So, I mean, this is kind of smoking the VCR rabbit so far. But I guess the real acid test will be our final test, the long range test. And that means going into Benny Boy's bedroom. So, an intimate bedroom edition of Ben's Junk.
Dad's waiting.
Well, color me impressed. At the opposite end of Archive HQ in my bedroom, it looks great. No distortion. I can turn up the volume. That's where we have the problem. Little sputtering. So, yeah. Sputtering notwithstanding, I'm impressed. Now, there may be other reasons for it. It could be other stuff that's on neighbor's Wi-Fi. My bedroom clock is there. I guess I could turn that off briefly. But what I really want to do, I have the lights off just so the picture is clear. But yeah, let's see if this remote works as a repeater. If it doesn't, I can go and try the CompuLink, but I don't think it's going to do anything. But I've been surprised before, been wrong before, and nope. Nada. Yeah. All right, well, I'll take a quick cut, move that one cable around. We'll try it one more time. I'll unplug my bedroom clock, see if that stops the sputtering, because that's the only other thing that's on in this room at all. So, yeah, just give me a moment. And we're back. So I unplugged the clock, I moved the cable around back in the other room, and all that's left to do is do our final tests. So yeah, we're as pure as we can be now. The only things running in this room at all are the TV and the receiver. So let me grab the remote here. We'll see if we're still sputtering.
Is that his name?
It might be. That's the word he says most of the time.
Yeah, oh, that is so frustrating. If it weren't for that sputtering audio, I'd say it was perfect. And we're at about 50 feet right now, and I'm not seeing any loss in signal, no distortion, no nothing. Yeah, it's just that audio. Oh, well. Can never have it all, can we? So I guess we'll try out the remote, as far as you're concerned, in the dark. But I'm not expecting much, so stop. Nope. Power? Yeah, I wasn't really expecting a whole lot here. Yep, nothing. Oh well, that would have been just a bonus. Oh well, so I'm gonna, as you've probably seen already, I have been taking direct feed footage along the way to show you properly what the quality is like. So I'm gonna hook my cloner box up real quickly here. Not the best quality, but good enough. And you'll see what it looks like at 50 feet direct feed. And I guess that's it. I'll talk to you again soon.